Neil deGrasse Tyson is absolutely wrong. Science will never tread that far. Please just quit sidestepping and engage the question. Hey guys, welcome back to Save Skeptic. I'm Josh, and today we're going to look at a recent video of Piers Morgan interviewing famous astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. And Piers asks a fundamental question about reality and God. Specifically, how can a universe come into existence from nothing, if not for a creator? And Tyson's response, it's utterly baffling to me. Let's take a look at the interview and then we'll discuss on the back end, but be sure to stick around because I'm going to show you the historical roots of this question. It's fascinating stuff, and you would think someone like Tyson would have a grasp on these things, but he doesn't, and so let's do it.
Here's my question for you. If I was Merlin, this is what I'd be asking, right? Let's assume you're Merlin for a moment. Merlin, what was there before nothing?
We don't know.
Right. So here's my point.
It's okay to not know. That's the whole point of science.
No, but
the whole point of science is go where you don't know the answer.
That's why I believe in God, because there has to be a superior thing out there which can answer that question. The human brain cannot answer it because they can't, because nobody knows the answer. Therefore, there has to be, does there not, logically, a superior thing which can answer that question?
Yeah, so that's not an invocation of logic. That's an invocation of what philosophers have historically called the God of the gaps. The God of the gaps is, you look at where science has yet to tread, where science has yet to figure out, and you say, wow, that's mysterious. I don't know how that works. God must have done it. And by the way, for you to feel this way, there's a long, storied history of people thinking this way. Let's go back to AD 150, Claudius Ptolemy, brilliant Alexandrian mathematician, polymath. He wrote in the margin of one of his greatest works, he said, after looking at the planets going back and forth, not fully understanding why they did this, and he writes, when I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies, I no longer touch earth with my feet. I stand in the presence of Zeus himself and take my fill of ambrosia. He was feeling it, okay? He's invoking religion. It's a beautiful quote. It's one of my favorite quotes ever, by the way, because it's so honest, it's so mysterious and so curious. And what I'm saying here is, he did not understand the planets and he invokes deity to help him out. That's what you just did, but on a different frontier, because we know why the planets go back and forth. Newton got that figured out, and Kepler. So if, to you, God is where science has yet to tread, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance.
I want to end with just a funny thing. That's a great answer, by the way. It's terrible, but it's a great answer.
Wow. I can honestly say that was the worst answer he could have possibly given. I mean, come on, man. Engage the question seriously. I mean, for all his brilliance as an astrophysicist, Tyson completely misses the point of the question when he says that suggesting God as the source of all being is not an invocation of logic. I mean, he's totally false. In fact, this idea of reality, that God must be the cause, it's actually rooted in real logical principles that have been rigorously studied by some of the greatest minds in history. Take, for example, the principle of sufficient reason, which states that everything must have a reason or cause for its existence. Or we can look at the principles of contingency and necessity. Now, this means that contingent beings are things that exist but could conceivably not exist. Therefore, there must be a necessary being as the ultimate explanation for all contingent beings. And then finally, we can even look at the need to avoid an infinite regress. If every being were contingent and depended on another, the chain would extend infinitely, leaving no ultimate explanation. So the belief in God as the ultimate cause of the universe is far from arbitrary or some sort of superstitious idea. It is a completely rational and coherent understanding of reality. But his claim that belief in God as a creator, based on the idea that the universe couldn't come from nothing, that it's just a God of the gaps, this is a complete misunderstanding of what classical theism always has said about God and creation. How can someone of his intellectual stature fail to see the category error in his argument? I mean, to dismiss the concept of God as simply a placeholder for what science has yet to explain, like how ancient people explained thunder with Zeus, this just shows that he either refuses to engage with the metaphysical questions of life, or he just doesn't understand it, or he is afraid to because he knows that it'll challenge his worldview. So the belief that the universe couldn't come from nothing isn't about plugging gaps in scientific knowledge. It's about confronting the ultimate metaphysical question. Why is there something rather than nothing? And Tyson's God of the Gaps critique completely misses the point. So let's break it down. The classical understanding of God, articulated by thinkers like Aristotle, Plato, and Aquinas, is not about explaining physical phenomena that science hasn't figured out yet. Instead, it's about the foundational reality that makes the universe and science possible in the first place. This question has been grappled with since the ancients. Aristotle spoke of the unmoved mover, the eternal source of motion and existence, not as a being within the universe, but as the principle that sustains it. And then we have Plato that described the, quote, form of the good as the ultimate reality that gives existence, coherence, and meaning to all things. You see, these ideas weren't born out of ignorance about the physical world, but from a profound understanding that contingent realities require something necessary to sustain them. And then later, there's philosopher Plotinus, who expanded this idea with his concept of the One, a transcendent source from which all existence emanates. And then we have Aquinas, who later refined these ideas in his concept of God as the sustainer, stating that contingent things can't exist on their own and require a necessary being to hold them in existence moment by moment. So this idea that Tyson thinks that all these great thinkers must have been just throwing in God of the Gaps is insane. It's a complete category error. This idea isn't about filling gaps in scientific knowledge. It's about addressing a fundamentally different kind of question, one science is not equipped to answer. Scientific explanations describe how things happen within the universe, but they can't explain why there is a universe to begin with. The God of the Gaps argument fails because it conflates scientific and metaphysical explanations. I don't know, Tyson seems to assume that when someone argues the universe couldn't come from nothing, they're appealing to some sort of lack of knowledge about physical processes, but that's not the case. True nothing is the absence of all being. So I'm talking about no space, no time, no energy, no laws of physics, even a quantum vacuum or multiverse. That isn't nothing. It's still something. The question is, why does that something exist? And how is it sustained moment by moment? Why does anything exist at all? I really wish that Tyson could engage this question and really think about it, because I think if he did, he might come up with some really good thoughts. But he refuses to engage, and he stands by his wall of God of the Gaps, and it's so disappointing to see. But for those of you who stuck around, let me give you some scriptures that capture this beautifully. In passages like Acts 17:28, it says, "For in him we live and move and have our being." I just love that verse so much. I mean, it just explains so much about how God is always there, sustaining everything we need and everything we need to live. It's just amazing. But you got to understand, God is not a being in the universe, nor a cause among others. God is the very ground of existence, the reason there's something rather than nothing. In Genesis 1:1, we all know this passage, right? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This reflects this truth, showing that God is the source of all reality, not a stopgap for scientific inquiry. So ultimately, the God of the Gaps critique is a category error. It treats God as though he were just another piece of the puzzle to be replaced as our understanding grows. But God isn't part of the puzzle. He's the reason there's a puzzle at all, Tyson. So Tyson's dismissal of this truth, it doesn't diminish it. In fact, it just reveals the limitations of his argument. The belief in God as the creator isn't a desperate grasp to explain the unknown. It's a recognition of the ultimate source of everything we know and everything we have yet to discover. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. I always love to hear them. And in the meantime, take care and God bless.